Welcome to By Subject, a Silicon Slopes brand and marketing podcast. I'm your host, Peter Stevenson. I'm here with my co-host, Alysha Smith, managing partner of agency. And our guest this week is Tim Garrick, VP of Marketing at Layton Construction. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you.
Yeah. We've been communicating for a couple of months now about a specific tie. Yeah, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I do want to sort of like frame you up and tell everybody where you're from and where you grew up and your sort of backstory.
Sure. So I grew up in L.A. in the San Fernando Valley.
Oh, you did?
A little place called Chatsworth.
Okay.
You ever seen the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yes.
So like where the Manson gang was hanging out, that's where I grew up.
Oh,
a few years later, I'm not that old. But so I grew up in an interesting part of the world. I was a class clown in high school. And elementary school. I took a break during middle school during the awkward years. But then in high school, I retook that title of class clown. And a teacher once told me, you really should go into marketing because that's where all the class clowns go. And I didn't think about it at that time, but I think as I've reflected on that, I think I wonder if that was not in the back of my mind someplace that this is what class clowns do.
That's an unbelievable origin story. That's amazing. Okay, so give me your best anecdote from being a class clown.
Oh my gosh, geez, I don't know. It was always kind of
now they've just turned into dad jokes, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly. They were always dad jokes. But I try to get my son to do it too because he's got a really quick wit, but he's not as confident as I'd like him to be. And I said, let it out. Even if you get in trouble, let it out.
Yeah.
So it was a way for me to have confidence as a teenager, and humor has always been important to me. Even now, as leading a team, humor is really important in leadership.
That's super interesting that you feel like being a class clown led you into marketing and led you into being a better leader. I want to dig into that in a little bit. But tell me a little bit about how you had this in the back of your mind. Did you go to college and think from the get-go, I'm going to go into marketing?
Well, no. So I first started, I wanted to be a weather guy on the news.
No.
Yeah. So, okay.
Oh my goodness,
I hope my kids
amazing.
don't. I listened to Howard Stern when I was in high school a lot. And he used to joke that these news people, all they do is read other people's words, and they just look good on TV. And I thought, I could do that, and so I started out going into broadcast journalism. And I was at Arizona State at the time, and they were I don't know what's happening, but they're about to lose their accreditation, their journalism school. I don't know if they did or not, but they did. Wow. So I transferred to a school called Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa, where I studied public relations.
Oh.
I was really naive. My brother had done it, and I thought, well, if he's doing it, I could do it. And I like people. And I didn't realize what public relations really was. But I got into writing. It was very heavy on writing and the journalism style and campaigns, running a campaign. Des Moines, because of the Iowa caucuses, has a ton of political vibe, right? And so being involved in that at Drake especially was really, something that interested me. But while I was there was an 8-hour lab in graphic design as part of the curriculum for the major in public relations, and so I did this 8-hour lab with the graphic design dean or whoever she was, and I loved it. I mean, I fell right in love, and she's like, you should really change your major. I was like a half a semester away from graduating, not changing any major, but I fell in love with Photoshop and with Illustrator. And so I took that up as a hobby, and that I paired that with my ability to write or my training in writing to be able to put that in with the visual elements. And that really is what kind of had me fall into the communication side of marketing when I graduated.
There's a story there of how you got from Arizona State to Drake. Is it a good story?
No, it's kind of boring. Okay. I was, I'm one of 6 kids, and I've kind of always learned from my older siblings. I've learned from the good and the bad. Yeah. And my brother had gone there. His wife is from the Midwest, and so they ended up in Iowa. And when we were looking for schools, I was married at the time, my wife, and I said, well, all right, we can go to UCLA or we can go to Drake. And we went to Drake. I don't.
Price
the
seems better.
Price was right, and the program was a really good program for public relations.
Yeah, I'm sure all that political work at the start was probably hugely influential in like landing jobs and all of that stuff
Yeah.
right out of college.
One of my best friends is now a state senator from Iowa and has been involved in politics and exposed to everybody you can think of. He's friends with. Also, not as well known, but Des Moines is home to Meredith Corporation, huge publisher of Good Housekeeping or whatever.
Yeah.
They published, and so the Drake's public magazine school is one of the best in the country, or was at the time.
Yeah.
And so there was quite a bit of national prominence to a few things that Drake. They still regularly have presidential debates there. When I was there, they brought Supreme Court justices over for symposiums and things.
Right.
So Drake's got a really outsized kind of reputation and presence because of those two things, politics and publishing.
I had no idea there was such thing as a magazine school.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah. Yeah, right. But they all have the greatest internships because they work with with Meredith Corporation.
Okay, so you graduate and you fall in love with graphic design on your way out.
Yeah.
So where's the first job? What did that teach you?
So moved back to Arizona.
Okay.
And we had a young daughter, our first daughter at the time. And so I landed with a company that manufactures and sells garage doors of all things.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I was the HR and marketing assistant or whatever my title was.
That was a combined job.
It was a combined job, and really it was a communications, internal, external comms.
Yeah.
But it gave me the chance to, I created a whole employee newspaper, and I did the writing, did the layout, and that was a lot of fun. I had free reign to do whatever I wanted, and then I also did the advertising and designed the advertising, and had a lot of fun with. They just let me do whatever I want. I couldn't believe it. Like, wait, you give me an Illustrator license and I can do whatever I want. And
were you planning the marketing too? Like, or did they already know where they were going to be doing the marketing?
Well, the marketing for them was really more just the advertising.
Mm-hmm.
The sales guys were out, dealing with home builders in Arizona,
right?
It was gangbusters in the 2000s. I guess it still is, but it was pretty easy to sell garage doors,
right?
But on the consumer side, it was a small segment of the consumer side. We got to do mostly advertising and not much else.
Yeah.
Do you find that in your the marketers you've come across over the years? Do you find that you're in the minority of marketers that have such an extensive creative background? Just thinking about some of the other guests that we've had on, and they're a little more like analytical data and numbers, and not as much leaning on their experience in design and Photoshop, etc.
I think this goes back to kind of the difference of the industries that I've been in, especially the last 20 years in the architecture, engineering, and construction world. Most marketers aren't going to be analytical, looking at the data. If you're an architect, I worked for Fentress Architects in Denver about 20 years ago. You can count the number of clients on your hands and toes. And so you don't need a lot of data. You need to know what's important to them, and you need to be able to resonate with the clients and tell the story and showcase the solutions to their problems that you have. And so in our industry, the architecture, engineering, construction world, I'm going to call it AEC. We marketers tend to have those two skills, writing and visual. How do you draw somebody into a page or some content, and then when they get there, make sure there's something there. And so that's what we look for, is somebody who's got a combination of those skills.
Yeah, that makes sense. We, Modern 8, there was a period of time where we really specialized in the AEC industry, and they were, to be frank, some of our favorite partners and clients to work with, because we felt that we shared a similar point of view and wanting to create that emotion and really relying on the design and the aesthetics, but combined with the voice and the feelings that we wanted those clients to, portray to their target audiences.
Yeah. And I think you're seeing the architecture side of things influencing the engineering.
Yeah.
You know, you think of a typical engineer, and it's not creative, showy.
Yeah.
It's not creative in the same way we think of creativity. And then construction is, you know, but architecture has led out as these three elements have combined, where it used to be you hire architect, you hire engineer, and you hire the builder.
Yeah.
Now you hire them all at the same time.
Yeah.
And so to win work, you've got to showcase the beauty of the architecture, the brilliance of the engineering, and the pragmatism of the construction.
Yeah.
And so how do you do that all? Well, you've got to, we're still talking to humans, right? We're still communicating with human beings, and showing all those things in a creative way has been a key to the success of my career.
Yeah. Fun.
So you start in garage doors.
Yep.
I do want to jump to, you know, when you made the leap into like a real AEC firm.
Yeah.
When was that?
So that was 2006. I moved to Denver. Our
Okay.
daughter suffered from asthma.
Oh.
And we, living in Arizona, the air quality was terrible.
Yeah.
And we went on vacation to Denver, and she had no problems at all. She was,
interesting.
you know, maybe 3 or 4 at the
Yeah.
time. And so we moved to Denver, and I got a job with Fentress Architects.
Yeah.
At the time, actually, Fentress Bradburn, which is interesting because I came there as they were rebranding. Bradburn had retired, and so I got to focus a little bit on the rebranding and just to Fentress Architects. Fentress designs airport terminals, museums. They did the Denver airport, that is probably the most iconic in the U.S. that they designed.
Yeah.
But airports all over the world. And it was a really cool experience. We got to work very closely with Kurt Fentress, who's probably as good or better businessman than he is an architect, and he's a very good architect.
Right.
But I learned a lot from him on the business side and marketing side in that industry.
Tell me, so I'd love to hear some of the things that you feel like helped you in this space, because it is a different space in the marketing world than, you know, a demand gen or some of these other like pay-per-click type of things that a lot of other marketers are doing. You mentioned earlier that it is like, you know, shaking hands and that emotional appeal. So, you know, I'd love to hear some of those things that you learned from him. But then I before we get too far into it, I do want to kind of have you frame up what a marketer does in the AEC world, because it is totally different.
Yeah. So you need to know the primary marketing function in the AEC world is proposals, writing and developing proposals. If you have business developers the way Layton does, they're out creating the relationships, working with the clients or prospective clients to understand what their needs are, what their challenges are as they want to build a $20 million or $300 million project, right? What are they worried about? What keeps them up at night? So that's not necessarily the marketer's job to know that. So our job is really to be a continuation of that client experience. We call it the client journey. At Layton, we call it the Layton experience. You meet a business developer at Layton, and you're going to have an experience. And as they develop that relationship, you're going to come to the office. You're going to go on adventures or activities or events with and various touch points with our business developer and the executives in our company. And then at some point, the client will issue a request for proposal, and typically that's where marketing gets most engaged and where we're putting together that proposal. Now we want to be the continuation, if not a kind of an uptick in that experience. So it's got to be high quality. It's got to resonate with the reader, who then has to make a decision. And so marketing is really about validating the decisions, positioning the company and the client to say, I want to choose Layton because of this experience I felt. I trust them, right? You don't just pick anybody for $100 million project, right? Your career as a client could hangs in the balance, right? If it goes wrong. And so you've really got to trust the company that you're going with, and the proposal is a way to help them justify that decision. So it's got to have the content in there that speaks to them, because they understand what I'm worried about. They understand, and they've got solutions. And communicating that back so that when the client says, I'm going to choose Layton, and here's why. Here's the document proof. They feel good about that, and they feel confident about that.
So you when it gets to you to write the proposal or to help write it, you really have a thorough understanding of those pain points, and you've already been thinking about the solutions to make them feel, to your point, validated in their selection of you.
Ideally, right,
Yeah.
right, and that's a simple explanation. Of course, we want to get further to the left of the thing of the in that experience with social media drops and all these little drips that reinforce that decision and make you feel good about and build that trust in Layton and or whoever we're hiring.
I'm curious, when you say social media, what does that look like for Layton or any construction or anybody in that AEC industry? Is it different than what you see for a tech company, or what's your focus or your purpose?
Yeah, I think it comes back to it's thought leadership. If you're an architect, it's creativity. It's how do you meld form and function, and still give me a functional library and that's also a beautiful one. Yeah. And so it's showcasing the creativity. For engineering, it's thought leadership. What are you doing on the cutting edge of? I worked for an environmental engineer between the architect and Layton. What are you doing in the wastewater treatment world that's solving my problems with landfills filling up with bio waste?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we've got subject matter experts with PhDs, and so it's sharing the thought leadership. And in construction, it's a kind of a combination of those things. How are we? It's thought leadership on budget, on schedule, on supply chain issues, as well as just competency, just exploring and showcasing our vast portfolio that we can do stadiums, but we can also do multifamily housing. So it's we call it using a weapon of mass communication as a sniper tool, right? Because like I said, there are few clients, we can count them on our fingers and toes, and we need to communicate with them with a broad brush.
Do you have a preferred channel that you feel like is appropriate for construction?
Yeah, LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, we're on most of the, we're on LinkedIn and whatever Twitter is these days, but LinkedIn's the one that we're dealing with and we're concerned with most.
Yeah, we did a project at Modern 8 a couple of years back for Stanley Black & Decker. They have a tech spin-off that is in that space, and part of the problem that they had was that in the construction world, so much of it is who you know, and they were trying to find ways to help employers find employees, and it really was like a text message chain is how people were finding these jobs at that point. And so the goal was to help bring it from text messaging into like a formalized place that you found people on LinkedIn and all that stuff. And it's been interesting over the last 5 or 6 years, the more I've seen construction, the AC industry move to LinkedIn from text messages or emails or whatever. Have you seen that across the industry, that LinkedIn is where the AC industry is landing?
I think by default. I mean, it's just, and I don't even know how really deep it is. I think we find that a lot of our clients have no presence on LinkedIn. Right. And there's still a lot of skepticism about the value of social media in our industry, and certainly within our company. Yeah. As the newer, younger generation comes up into leadership, they see that value. But again, it's more of the subliminal, there's Layton. Oh, there's Layton. Okay. Yeah. And you continue to see that I can trust this company to build my project. So it's kind of an still evolving media for us. It's
also, there's not like a tried and true playbook in the AC industry in social media and in some of these places, right? Everybody's testing a bunch of things and throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it fits, right?
And that's what we've been trying to do. Yeah. We've been trying to take from other industries and apply it to our to what we're trying to do, and see what sticks and see how effective is it. And we measure that again, not by, we do measure by reach or
Right.
clicks or whatever it
The
is.
easiest thing there.
But really, when we hear a client say, "Yeah, I saw your post on about studio work.
Yeah.
We want those 2 guys that were on there. We want them on our job."
Oh, nice.
And so it's really about the one person.
Yeah.
And that's why I say we use it like a sniper tool to get to a very few select people.
Yeah.
Are you seeing in a lot of your peers or competitors using LinkedIn as a marketing tool?
Yeah. Nobody's, I think, standing out. We're all kind of doing the same things. I want to do more. We've hired our social media manager from the Phoenix Suns to again, take something from another industry and apply it here. But we can't push the envelope too far, right? Because we're still, we're
Have to
still
be
dealing with, we still have to be professional.
Yeah.
We still have got a mature brand to maintain.
Yeah.
And without losing the fact that we're builders, right? We're not trying to change the world. We're trying to build it.
Yeah. One thing we said we'd talk about, but then we didn't get to it, is you were talking about some early things you learned in Denver.
Yeah.
So tell me some things. I'm curious how you talked about the business and the marketing, combining those 2 things early on in your career.
Yeah. So early on, I was very much involved in just making a proposal or other collateral look good, right? A museum, if we're going after a museum in Boston, for example, we would want to make our proposal to look like a magazine, like a high-end, very well curated magazine, because we know that the clients are getting dozens of these proposals and they all look the same.
Yeah.
They're terrible. And then when you go in and read them, they all say the same things.
Right.
This is the A team. You're going to get the A team. And we understand.
Yeah.
So in 2008 or so, the state of California was going to build 5 or 6 new state courthouses all throughout the state. And Kurt Fentress says, "I want to win one of those," which is ridiculous. There's plenty of architects in California. So I thought it was pretty bold to say, yeah, this architecture firm from Denver is going to go win a state courthouse, and they like to keep the money in state.
Right.
And so we identified 3 of the 5 or 6 that we were going to pursue. And he sent me and another architect to a week-long symposium at Harvard, where the decision makers from the state of California were putting on a conference about what's important in the new American courtroom and courthouse. What are the important design elements? And my job was there to listen. Yeah. What are the hot button issues? Yeah. What are they thinking about? These are the decision makers. Yeah. What do they want to see in our proposal? And then also to network and get to know them.
Sure.
And the architects was there to do the same thing. Yeah. And so then we came back and we worked on those 3 proposals, and we hit those things hard, right? We hit the message. It was all about messaging.
Yeah.
And we shortlisted for all 3 of them and won one of the projects, which is, again, ridiculous considering the big name brand architects that were also pursuing it. A little firm in Denver won one. And so I learned at that point how important the messaging was. Yeah. People, you're going to get a dozen of these. They've really got to stick out and they've got to speak to you, just like any marketing piece, right? And that changed my mindset to not just from making things pretty, slapping lipstick on a pig, to putting something in there that's really important.
And do you find that that's stayed with you, that like saying, okay, I need to spend the time to get the information I need ahead of time is going to allow us to win these projects?
Absolutely. The marketer needs to have a very good understanding of architecture, of engineering. How do you build a building? What are the logistics? What are the problems that you're facing? Not only that, the cultural elements of the client. So, for example, we had a client that was very interested in having a diverse construction team, not just a bunch of old white guys, which has dominated the industry.
Right.
We knew that, or we should have known that was important to them. And we submitted a team of old white guys.
Yeah.
And we didn't shortlist. We didn't get, so the sooner we know these things and what's important to them, marketing can be involved in the strategy and say, wait a minute, look at our team here. It's not diverse. Or, the client said that this is a big issue. This is it's a small job site, for example. Where are we going to stage our stuff? We're not addressing that.
Right.
And so we need to be part of the strategy and then the message in developing that message.
Are you finding that you are? I guess one of my big questions is, I know there's been a real transition from price-based awarding of contracts to value-based in this industry.
Sure.
Have you seen a change in the way that people are going after these projects, the way that your proposals are being written, the way that people are teaming up with, architects and engineers and construction companies together to then bid as a value-based proposition?
Absolutely.
Well, so what's the big change for a company like Layton then in that value-based proposition?
Well, in the last 20 years, design build, where the owner would hire the architect and the builder in one contract, and they're paired together and they work together. The builder becomes part of the consultant.
Yeah.
Rather than a contractor, we are now a consultant. So we consult on constructability and budget right at the beginning. Right. As they're designing, we can kind of see the price go along, and then you can adjust rather than have a design. Oh, this is over, bid on it. It's over budget. Go back to the drawing boards, cut, and then you end up with a building you hate and you've spent a fortune on. And so the builder becomes, like I said, a consultant throughout and can consult on the cost of materials, the cost of labor, and the constructability. And that becomes really important in the messaging that we have throughout in any channel.
So what has been the things that you as a marketer are leaning on for Layton Construction to win value-based projects now versus pricing before? Like, are you leaning more into brand? Are you leaning more into, thinking about, the safety aspects, all that kind of stuff? Like, how are you leaning into value-based projects and winning those?
When we're at our best, we're leaning into the very specific concerns of the individual client.
Yeah.
And yes, those tend to be related to budget and schedule.
Yeah.
But why? And so that's what I train the marketers to ask, is the 5 whys.
Yeah.
Don't settle with, well, they've got to be on budget. Well, why? Well, because the Olympics are happening and they need the building. Well, why?
Right.
Because, and ultimately it comes down to often the individuals are making the decision. They want to look good.
Yeah.
And so if we make our clients look good and can show them how we've done that in the past, then we're going to continue to win work. And by the way, the best business development is done on the projects, right?
Yeah.
And so, something like 80% of Layton's clients are repeat clients.
Sure.
And so eventually maybe marketing's totally phased out.
Yeah.
We have a sister company that has no marketing department at all. All their business development is done on the job.
That's actually a great segue into something I wanted to ask, is where do you think the AEC industry and marketing is going in the next 5 years? I mean, everything is topsy-turvy. So where is the marketing going in this industry?
I have this debate regularly, and with my team leaders, and my conclusion is that it's not going anywhere. It's always going to come down to relationship. Again, we're talking about big money. On the public side, we're talking about careers. When you're using taxpayer money or ratepayer money to build a library or a new water treatment plant, if it goes bad, that's bad for you politically and bad for your career.
Right.
And so the client's always going to choose the people they trust. And so, the tools might change. AI is going to change the way we share a message, perhaps, or the rate at which we can put things out. It's just a tool to build those relationships of trust, which I don't see changing. So, but let me answer your question a little bit differently. I worked in the Middle East for 6 years with a multinational engineering firm,
Yeah.
and where engineering was a commodity.
Right.
We had the Dubai Rapid Transit Authority literally would send all the engineers an RFP and say, sign the last page with your price.
That's it.
That's it. And because it was all, like you said, it wasn't qualitative
Right.
based on quality. It was based on low price.
Right.
And so you'll see that pendulum swing from time to time, especially now as money becomes more expensive, as the interest rates continue to go up. Our clients are going to say, well, can I go with this other contractor because they're cheaper? And what happened, the pendulum will swing that way, where they'll go low cost, low cost, low cost.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll find that it didn't get the quality at all.
Yeah.
And it's going to swing back over to, you know what, it's worth it to pay for a
2%.
company like Layton.
0.5%, really.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
And the dollars add up, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but
It-
we see that pendulum swing as interest rates change in our industry.
Yeah, makes sense.
You mentioned that you have a sister company that doesn't have a marketing arm.
Yeah.
So do you think that that's not the future then?
No, I kind of say that in jest, and I like to poke at marketing. In this industry, there's I regularly have existential crises.
Sure.
Right, because they say, well, what value are we bringing?
Right.
And it always comes back to that experience I said.
Right.
At some point, marketing's involved in this part of experience with the client, and ideally, we're more and more involved in events and not just the proposal, but even after a project's done, what are we doing to promote the client's project to make them look good? So,
right.
for example, we're building a high-rise in Phoenix, and the client really wants to showcase this project. And so we're collaborating to add that type of value in social media through video. We have in-house video and where we can showcase the client's project to them. That adds value because they're getting some attention to their project. And so we're trying to drive demand for our services.
Right.
So that it's not just, well, we don't need marketing because the client's just going to negotiate with us.
Right.
Well, there's more to it than that.
Right.
We find that too, there's no way that an AI is going to understand the pain points
Right.
or really understand what the client needs.
Right.
Without the human interaction and then the ability to really speak to someone. And again, to your point, like build those relationships.
Yep.
And that's not going to go away.
No.
That can't be replaced.
No, exactly. Not, especially not when you're dealing with big, 7, 8, 9 figures, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So just to kind of one of our last questions that we like to ask in terms of wrapping up is if you could offer some advice, in your years of marketing prowess,
Yeah.
what would that be? Or one piece of advice?
Stay curious. Even if you're in a boring industry like the AEC, and I say that in jest too, but I think it's really interesting. But there's a lot of complacency, and we regularly get content from our competitors, and we see a lot of complacency, and we want to stay.
Yeah.
We look at it and say, not to copy it, but to say, well, we can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
And so stay curious, pull in the best ideas from other industries, and apply it to this one so that it's kind of innovative in this industry, even though somebody else has been doing it.
Yeah. Hire someone from the Phoenix.
Hire somebody from the NBA and from the NFL. We've done that.
Yeah.
That's good
and
strategy.
Bring in fresh ideas.
Unique.
Yeah.
Okay. And final question that we ask every week is give the people some places they should go eat or drink in this great state of ours.
Or in your neighborhood.
Or yeah.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about this. Tacos Lopez. If you get
where's that?
That's in West Jordan, I think on 78th.
Okay.
Near Redwood. And
Okay.
it's you go there and you get the al pastor, the vampiro. You're sitting pretty. Or
In a taco, like a corn or flour, what's the
corn, flour. You need to know a little bit of Spanish to
Does it come
order
with
there.
a pineapple.
Perfect.
It comes with pineapple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it on a spit?
It's on a spit. They've got it on a
okay.
spit. Yeah. And then shawarma at International Market on 72nd and State Street.
Okay.
It's run by it's a grocery store that's caters to Middle Easterners.
Yeah.
They're run by an Iraqi and Syrian or Jordanian, and really authentic Middle Eastern
awesome.
food there.
It's that green sign, right?
It's that green sign.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
It's in Arabic and English.
Yeah.
But you go, they've got a little cafe or
The shawarma.
the shawarma. Get the chicken shawarma with
Okay.
everything on it.
Yeah.
Don't ask
noted.
questions.
Don't try
I
to
wouldn't know how
make
to.
substitutions.
No substitutions. Just whatever, everything they have. If she says, "Do you want?" Yes, I want.
Okay. Noted.
It's really good.
Good to know.
Good stuff. And they've got very authentic Middle Eastern sweets there too, desserts. If you walk into that store, you'll feel like you're walking right into a grocery store in
Oh,
Abu
that's
Dhabi
so
or something.
cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh.
That's amazing. Just up the street, I've eaten at the Chinese supermarket on like
Oh, yeah.
35th and State, but I need to go to way more
Yeah.
of these,
Like
foreign
little
markets.
hidden
Yeah.
gems.
They're-
Oh yeah.
They're amazing.
Yep, for sure.
I am dying to go there. I'm salivating.
Yeah, you should go.
Yeah, I'm gonna go today.
All right.
All right. Hey, thank you so much, Tim, and appreciate it. And we'll see you all here in 2 weeks.
Thanks.
By Subjects is a production of Modern 8 Agency in Silicon Slopes. Executive producers are Alysha Smith and Peter Stevenson. Editor and producer is Dave Meekum. Video production by Connor Mitchell. Development production by Eric Dahl. Production management by Shelby Sandlin. Original music composed by Josh Johnson. Website designed by Modern 8. Please make sure to follow and share the show with your friends and your enemies. Thanks for joining us.